Coming to you from North Atlanta Studios and brought to you by Mesmerize Media. It's the Advantage of Adversity podcast. And now, here's your host, Glenn Carver.
Hello, everyone. It's Glenn Carver, your host for the Advantage of Adversity podcast. As you know, the mission of this podcast is to highlight people with inspiring stories. People who have been through significant adversity, if you will, either in their personal and or professional lives. And in spite of that adversity, they've chosen to make the decision to move through it and find the opportunity, maybe even the advantage in the adversity. And we've got a great conversation coming to you today. Speaking of today, we're coming to you from North Atlanta Studios, produced by Mesmerize Media. And I've got a dear friend on today, a brother from another mother, if you will. He's a dear friend. He's a neighbor in our community. His name is Goad. He owns Goad Home Partners, and just honored to have him on the show. We're going to dig in today about his drug and alcohol addiction and his rehab, and as he's gone from that immense adversity into just building this wonderfully blessed life. Cannot wait to dig in. So, Greg, man, welcome to the show.
Glenn, a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you being here. Appreciate your friendship.
Absolutely.
Appreciate who you are in the community, what you've done for my family in some of our darkest days. And I love you, man. I really appreciate you.
I love you too. Absolutely.
So I had to send me a bio of what you're about. And I know a lot about you, but your bio says, and I love this, you love God.
Yep.
You serve people.
Mm-hmm.
But we could just stop right there. That's all we need to know about Greg.
That's it.
You love God, you serve people, you're thrilled with exploring the outdoors, and you enjoy your one wheel.
I do.
And I can vouch to all four of those.
You 100% can.
I've seen you come by my house 100 times,
Easy.
Screaming on your one wheel. And
back when Jack was running around.
Yeah, your dog Jack was running around, and I just love that. You got the long hair, you got the free spirit.
Very much so.
You must be a Cali boy.
No, never lived in California.
That's crazy. That's a great transition. Where are you from?
So I'm from Augusta, Georgia. I grew up in Georgia. Augusta, lived there for 22 years.
Both Georgia boys?
So I moved to Georgia when I was about 5 or 6.
Okay.
Right? So yes, I'm a Georgia boy, 100%.
All right. Where were you born?
Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Oh.
Yeah. So I actually learned how to call the hogs before the dogs, but
got it.
If I have to choose, I'm going to sick them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Because I'd have to uninvite you off my show.
I know you're a big Georgia guy.
You know. I'm a pull for it.
I know.
Can I just hear you say go dogs?
Go dogs.
Yes. Oh, perfect. Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about your professional life first, so you can plug yourself.
Yeah, you bet.
Got to give you your props.
Yeah.
You're a kick-ass real estate agent. Can I say that?
Absolutely.
Can I say that on this show? It's my show. I should say it.
It's your show. Yeah, go for it.
Greg, you're a kick-ass agent.
Thank you.
I love how you market yourself. I love your spirit. I mean, you love helping. You love serving people.
Very
you
much
do
so.
that through the vehicle of real estate. So tell people what you do in real estate. And man, I love all your marketing videos. You understand that exposure equals magic.
100%. So I got into real estate in 2016. I got my license, and because of my addiction and alcoholism, when I went to go get my license, I had to go out in every place I was ever arrested in the state of Georgia. I had to get a clerk of court letter saying that I had been done with everything from that charge 5 years prior to the application to get the Georgia real estate license.
Ooh.
No lie, like the last charge, 5 years, I had totally been done with the probation that I turned in those papers. And I had to go to every single place I was arrested and get that. So there was quite a bit at that point.
Yeah. Okay. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We say every single place. Bookmark that. We'll come back to it.
Right.
So you love real estate.
Yep.
You're very, very good at it. Why is it working for you when some people are struggling?
So this is what happened, probably 2020, right before COVID. It was during COVID. I was selling anywhere from 25 to 30 homes just by sphere of influence. I'm very heavy in the Alcoholics Anonymous community in our Northwest Atlanta area. I'm very heavy in our church community, Woodstock City Church.
Yes,
I work,
we are.
So I work with the Inside Out kids. So I was a small group leader during that time. And then I sponsor guys in AA as well. And I had this opportunity. A friend of mine had this mom that lived in Carrollton, Georgia, and she had this breathtaking, amazing home. It was primarily a tree house that she was selling. It's this custom built home, but she decided she wanted to sell it. And my buddy's like, hey, my mom wants to talk to you about selling the tree house. And I was kind of like, absolutely. Like, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I had just started playing around and being exposed to what listing videos and cinematic listing videos looked like. And I got turned on to a couple of guys in Canada and here in the States that were doing that on a mega level. And a buddy of mine brought it to my attention. It was like, you can do this.
Yeah.
So once I got that opportunity to do this listing video, I took it and grabbed with it and ran with it. And we shot that first listing video, Glenn, and it was...
What was the date?
It was April 2020. So...
Okay.
we were in the midst of COVID.
Sure.
We had no idea what was going on with the market.
Sure.
We listed when everybody didn't know what was happening. But what happened was I shot that video, and within a week, 40,000 people liked it on Facebook.
What?
17,000 people liked it and saw it on YouTube. And
Your
then,
first listing video.
first ever. And what happened was the wheels started turning, and I realized that I just filled State Farm Arena with
good.
With one video.
Ooh, that's good.
Right. So it started to get in the wheels turn. And I was like, and then I went to my broker, who was my best friend, guy I've been sober with for a long, long time. And I was like, dude, it's like, look at all this data. Like, look at all the people. Like, we got to get into video, like all in, like, let's go.
Absolutely.
And he was like, Greg, I love you. He's like, I'm here for you. I'm not doing that. And I was just he's like, dude, I got a great business, great referral network. Like, I'm in a good space.
Yeah.
And I didn't leave him at that point, but I was just kind of like, like, okay. And kind of fast forward the tape, I started diving into that whole video world. And I started shooting listing videos, and I started shooting other pieces of content about our community. I started partnering with small businesses and doing stuff with them. And if you even go to my YouTube channel and you check out some of our
What's your YouTube channel?
Greg Goad Best Life Atlanta.
Greg Goad Best Life Atlanta. GOAD. Greg Goad Best Life Atlanta.
Yeah, if you just type my name in YouTube, it'll pop
up. Great. I want to plug you.
I love it. So once that happened, my business exploded, right? I went from doing 25 to 30 deals, where last year we closed 67 transactions.
You and a team?
No, just me.
What?
Solo. Right. So in the process, I've hired a full-time transaction coordinator. I hired a full-time assistant, manager of operations. My wife has been licensed since then as well. She also helps. She designed my website. She helps me do some projects for marketing purposes. So it is me, and I have a team, but I don't have a team of agents.
Okay.
Right. So I've realized what I am good at and what I'm not good at.
Sure. You found your niche, brother.
And what I'm not good at is administrative work. So if I can delegate that, I delegate.
Understand. Let's go back to this first video. There's some business lessons there.
100%.
For people paying attention.
Sure.
Why did that thing get 17,000 views? Was it you and your personality? Was it the timing? Was it the quality of the production? Was it everything? Where's the magic sauce?
I think the magic sauce was in authenticity.
Okay.
It was just being me.
Okay.
Unapologetically. Right. So as a real estate professional, most people think, they think glamour shots, what they see on a sign as they're driving through a neighborhood. They see the blazer, they see, short hair, tie, like that kind of stuff.
Sure.
In the opening scene of this listing video, we're not even at the house. We're walking out of a coffee shop in downtown Carrollton. I've got a flannel shirt on, flat bill hat, hair's down to, the middle of my belly.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about, with a coffee in my hand, talking about Carrollton, Georgia, and how close we are to Atlanta. Right. And then I hop on my one wheel and I ride off down the street, carving through the street. And then it transitions to me riding up the ramp to this house.
Wow.
And I give a MTV crib style walkthrough tour of this home.
Yeah.
To just give you an idea about this home too, because you had asked about it before. this was so custom. It had like stained glass from churches all around the South. All the wood was from Carroll County. The stone was from the Smokies. Like everything in this home was like Southeast, like transported there. So it was very special. So I think a combination of that, my authenticity, and putting a different spin on, most people see, you know, listing video, they think soft jazz, granite countertops, and some light B-roll. And this was everything but that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't know this was going to be a video marketing class.
Well,
there you go. That's awesome. And you've definitely found your marketing space, your special sauce, your spot where you need to be. All right. That's all wonderful. Very happy for you. Let's get down and dirty.
Let's do it.
You've been addicted to alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
You've been addicted to drugs.
Yep.
Apparently you've been arrested a few times.
Several.
You've been through rehab.
Twice.
I mean, okay, twice. You've built this incredible life now, but let's go back to the beginning. When did this train wreck start for Greg Goad?
5 years old.
Ooh.
I know that sounds crazy, but
okay.
So
you have my attention.
My dad and my mom, they get divorced at an early age. 2, 3. My dad remarries. I was around 5, and they got married at my stepmother-to-be's parents' home in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And they had this huge, beautiful, elaborate home, estate-style piece of property, and they had a big champagne tower. And they thought it, like, I just was able to go get champagne. And as a little kid, I know you laugh, but even as a little kid, I remember this so vividly. And I just remember drinking it, loving it. And then I felt a part of the party and live and fun. And literally the last thing I remember, Glenn, was my grandmother tucking me in bed. So literally the first time I ever drank that I can remember, I blacked out. Wow. I mean, that's just like, that's what happened.
Well, when you're 5-year-old, tolerance is pretty low.
Yeah, 100%. So, and, you know, as my dad was living in Arkansas at that point, my mom was living in Augusta, Georgia. What happened was I realized that when I went to visit my dad, you know, he is an alcoholic. He'll tell you that today. You know, at that time when I went to go visit, I would drink, not like, but, you know, he would have beers. And when he would pick up a 6-pack or a 12-pack of Busch Light, like I would get a 6-pack of like Woodchuck Amber, you know, or Zima or something like that. And that was normal. So what happened is I equated drinking and drug use to fun.
Sure, of course.
Like I put those together, you know, and later down the road into my teens, I discovered marijuana and I smoked him, you know? So like once I went down that path, and I would only do it there. So it's very Mr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Like I would live like one lifestyle with one parent, and the other lifestyle was like Sunday school, choir boy, like go to church every Sunday.
Wow. Okay.
And I didn't have any friends or anybody that did any of that stuff in Augusta. I was not privy to it whatsoever. I only did it at my dad's house.
Wow. 2 lives.
So once I became 12, 13, I started to realize that this stuff was accessible here. And that's where things started to get gray and murky. And I started to do some of those things with people here and started to get in some trouble. And, you know, fast forward to junior year of high school, you know, I was smoking pot on a regular basis, and then I was drinking, not every day, but when I did, it was like the stop button was broken. That's the best way I can describe it. Like it was never installed on this model.
Right. Got it. Good
Yeah.
analogy.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Too much is not enough.
you got it, man. So what would happen was, so that specific incident, and I was underage too. This was in Columbia County, and they have a no tolerance policy. And I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and we had ended up drinking. We were out in his Jeep, like jeeping, like out in the near the Savannah River, near the airport. And we weren't going to go to this Christmas dance, but we got a few drinks in us. We were like, we should go to the Christmas dance. So we ended up getting a bottle of liquor, going to this Christmas dance. I drove, and I had told it, and we had gotten a 5th of Jack Daniels. I'll never forget. And I said, hey, dude, get rid of the bottle. And when we left there, he was like knee walking drunk, couldn't walk. I was okay. I had somewhat of a tolerance. And I remember I had pulled over into this neighborhood that was being built, and there was nobody back there. So I got him changed out of his clothes. I was going to drop him off, you know, smooth drop off at his house. Parents wouldn't know. You know, I was going to get him out of his clothes that he had like thrown up on and all that stuff. Oh, yeah. It was gross.
Ugly.
It's totally ugly. Well, I pulled out to leave this unbuilt neighborhood, and there's two cops sitting side by side, like talking to each other. You know how they do?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And lights went on instantly. And within 3 seconds of them opening the door, they pulled out the empty bottle of Jack Daniels and set it on top of the car. And,
Busted.
and that was the beginning, because that was literally just the beginning of the troubles that were to occur.
How old were you?
I was 17.
17. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so lost my license. I went into the Columbia County holding facility for not very long. They didn't process me, so I didn't go to general population or anything like that, but I still had to get processed, right? So get out, lose my license for a few months, get on probation, go back to the straight and narrow. I'm like, okay, I got in trouble. Now I need to like straighten up. And then once I got off probation, then I started going back over here because I wasn't getting drug tested. And then I went to Young Harris College. So I'd gotten into Young Harris, but because I had a low SAT score, I had to go to do some remedial classes during the summer. I felt like it was like, hey, I get to go do something before everybody else. Everybody else was going to, enjoying their summer, and I was going to Young Harris to go to school. And during that process, I was away from home and nobody was looking over my shoulder, and I just did what I've always done. I get to
Greg will
drink how I want to drink and smoke how I want to smoke and all the things, and through that process, I came back in between. We started the fall semester and I got another DUI. Yep. So now it's 2. I'm not even 20 yet. I've got 2 DUIs. And, but at the time, I didn't think I had a problem.
Well, you never do.
You just never do. Right. So so after that, we get into the, I go back to fall semester. I get into Young Harris. I don't have a car. And if you've been up there, which you have, you drive around, you got to have a car to get around. So I didn't have a car. I just had to rely on people to get to and from and do things. And lo and behold, I get asked to leave Young Harris. The dean invited me and says, I was Mr. Goad.
Nice way to put it.
You've had a wonderful semester. We would like you to take the next semester off.
Yeah.
So instead of doing the right thing and calling my parents and letting them know what happened, I packed a bag, Glenn, and I disappeared.
Oh, gosh.
And I disappeared for about 6 months.
To where?
And I was just couch surfing, honestly. So I had friends that were freshmen all across the Southeast. So I was literally selling drugs out of a backpack.
Oh, okay.
And I was just traveling around.
Sure.
And then finally I ended up back in Augusta. I was not living with my parents. My parents kind of knew where I was. And, one day I ended up on the other side of the railroad tracks. I shouldn't have been there. I'll never forget this. This is one of the bottoms that I had. And I was sleeping on a buddy's futon, shirtless, and I had a cockroach crawl across my chest. And I wake up and I think, if you would just not drink and use, you could go to your parents' house. They live in a gated community and eat 3 solid meals and have whatever.
No roaches running across your chest.
100%. But I can't drink and use the way I want to.
Yeah.
But at that point I was like, I'm done. Right. So I called a friend of mine. I said, hey, I'm ready to go home. He was kind of like, what does that look like? I've seen home for you change quite a bit over the last little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, home to, where my parents live. And he was like, all right. Yeah. And it was like the prodigal son going home. Wow. And I never forget, I walked in, my stepdad was in the house. My mom was in the backyard doing some like gardening, some like yard work kind of stuff. And it was like literally the prodigal son had come home. I hadn't seen her in 6+ months. And, we cried, embraced. We sat down in the living room and had.
Did you tell her the truth?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had the come to Jesus meeting. And I was just like, I'm ready to get sober. I'm ready to go to treatment. I'm ready to do that. And, we looked at going to a place here in Atlanta, but I wasn't quite ready for like inpatient treatment because I'd been like primarily like a traveling circus for 6 months. Like I didn't have a home. I was like, no, I just want to sleep in my bed.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be nice.
So we found a rehab in Augusta where I was able to go to an intensive outpatient, and they had like, it was a young people specific. Cause I was only 19 years old. Like I wasn't that old.
Sure.
I was 19. So I go
into pup.
So I enroll into IOP, and it was really a beautiful thing because with this young group that was sober, intensive outpatient.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're in IOP. I do that. I get out, and it's this program just for young people. So I'm learning how to have fun sober. because we're all young. So, we're staying out all night, but having fun staying out and like going to Waffle House. And at the time you could smoke in Waffle House. So we'd go to Waffle House late night and smoke cigarettes and shoot the bull, but we were all sober. We were having fun and we were learning how to have fun sober.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's a huge deal. Cause like I said earlier, I correlated fun with using, right? So anytime I was doing a thing, like we had to have the caddy, which was either a beverage or a smokable object. Like that's something we had to have. And,
I can relate.
So we had that going on. Well, then came the day of right before I turned 21 and I had started dating a girl. She wasn't sober and ended up finding my way back to, well, maybe I overreacted a little bit. Right. And she worked in the restaurant industry. I had stopped going to like meetings for sobriety. I was not going to any kind of recovery related stuff. I wasn't praying. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't hanging out with sober people. Right. I was working and I was hanging out with this really hot girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my girlfriend at the time.
Understandable.
And lo and behold, one night I was like, hey, do you have any weed? And she was just like, matter of fact, I do, but I didn't think you did that. And I was like, well, it's been a while. Yeah. I think I'll be all right.
Sure.
You know?
Just one time.
And, we giggled. And I didn't burn the house down, and I was like, well, that went really well. Like it went extremely well.
Yeah.
And I fell back into it. And
sure.
Once every now and again became an everyday thing again. Well, right before I turned 21, I was like, maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Maybe because I wasn't of age. And I kind of was like, well, when I got those DUIs, it wasn't because I was drunk. It was because I was underage and they had a no tolerance policy in Columbia County.
Okay.
Maybe that was it.
Yeah. We can justify anything.
So 100%. So I was like, well, let's try this out. And I asked a friend to pick me up a 6-pack of Budweiser long necks. I'll never forget. That was like, if I was to go out and buy beer, like that's what I loved. Like long neck Budweiser, like that's what I was into. And I drank those. And again, I didn't burn the house down. Nobody got arrested. Right. There wasn't any catastrophic anything happening.
Yeah, I can do this again.
Oh yeah. And then I turned 21. Literally the night that I turned 21, it was gross.
Okay.
We went downtown Augusta and it was bad. It was bad. We went
Disgusta.
Oh, it Disgusta. You better believe it. Yeah. It was bad. And I remember coming to that morning and I was naked in a shower in a buddy's apartment.
Roaches?
No roaches.
Okay.
But
roaches.
A friend of mine standing over me going, do I need to take you to the hospital? And I was just kind of like, I'm awake. I'm good. And I was. But that was what started the next year, right? So over the next year, what happened was I couldn't stop drinking. Like it just over and over and over.
Okay, let's pause. I couldn't stop drinking. What does that mean?
So once I start, I can't stop.
Until you black out? Okay.
Fall out, pass out, whatever.
Yeah.
Get locked up, which is what tended to happen to me a lot.
No stop button.
No stop button. Stop button was not installed on this model.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what happened, and then when I was in Young Harris, I was introduced to some other substances that went up your nose.
Sure.
And I liked those a lot.
Yeah.
And that got me in a lot of trouble as well too. Luckily, I never got any hard drug charges. All of my stuff was just me being drunk and stupid.
Okay.
I picked up another DUI when I tried to get sober and I tried to go back to my parents' house. At this point, they had moved to North Carolina. So I'd gotten out on bond for this DUI that I got in North Carolina.
Man.
Drove illegally without a license back down to Augusta, Masters Week, get another DUI. Right. 6 months apart.
This is a train wreck.
Train wreck. Yeah. So go to jail. I'm in Richmond County downtown. And the next day I go before the court, plead guilty to DUI. Because of my other DUIs in Georgia, they were like, oh, this is 2 and 5. You got to do 32 days. Then we'll release you, put you on probation. I was like, sounds great. Well, they did
32 days in jail.
Yes,
yep.
Correct. So what happened was I went to Finnessy Road, which is their holding facility in Richmond County at the time. The jail I was currently is actually no longer there anymore. They demolished it. It's gone. So I went out to Finnessy Road. I did my time. I did my 30 days. And in this process, the craziest thing happened. You weren't allowed to have literature, books inside, but there was a jailer that was a Gideon. And she gave away Gideon Bibles.
Interesting.
The Gideon Bibles, the blue book in the hotel room in the side drawer.
Yeah, of course.
The Foxhole Prayer Bible.
Yeah.
So they said in order to get one, you would have to write her a letter, and she would bring you a softback, New Version King James Gideon Bible. So I did, and I got one, and I started reading it for the first time for myself.
Now, did you have, prior to that moment, had you ever gone to church?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But I'd never read it on my own accord.
Correct.
For myself.
Got it.
Right?
Good deal.
I go back and I look at, I definitely was saved at 6. I was probably 6th grade-ish, 12-ish, somewhere in there. I remember I was at in St. Simon's at a church camp in middle school. Like, I'll never forget. It was in 6th grade. Like, I'll never forget that moment when I learned what the Holy Trinity was and what the Holy Spirit was and all that. I remember that, right? But we always fall, right? We always fall.
Yeah.
We're sinful beings. And so, fast forward, I get this Bible, I start reading it. This is funny. This is comical. So I read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and I call my my godfather, my friend that I'd grown up, and he was he had a daughter my age, and he was kind of like the dad that I didn't have that kind of helped me and my misfit friends when we were knuckleheads. And he was he went to the same church we went to. And I was like, do you know it's the same story 4 times over, but from different perspective? He's like, Greg, where have you been? And it was the first time that I'd read the 4 Gospels for myself.
Right.
And, and I started to cultivate that personal relationship with God, and I started doing little Bible studies.
You're
with guys
what
at
age
church.
now?
I'm 21. Yeah.
Okay.
21 at the time.
That's what I thought.
And, so I'm in jail. So I get that Bible. Well, then at 32 days, they transfer me back to downtown. They're going to release me. Well, when I was at Young Harris, I'd gotten in the law and I was stealing road signs and got arrested. Well, I'd never finished out that probation. They drove 4.5 hours from Blairsville to pick me up on a misdemeanor probation violation. So I get back they pick me up, take me to Blairsville. I get to Blairsville and I sat there for 2 weeks. I didn't see anybody. No bail, nothing.
Sat where for 2 weeks?
In jail.
In jail.
In county.
All right.
So I'm sitting there in county, and 2 weeks come by, a probation officer finally comes to see me. She says, all right, Mr. Goad, $1,000 today. We're going to get you out and get on bond, put you back on probation. And I just looked at this lady. I was like, I'm good. She said, what do you mean you're good? I was like, it's clear to me that I can't do this. So you should just run the time. And she just looked at me like I had 3 eyes. She's like, okay.
Run the time. Define that.
Meaning hey, I'll serve my sentence, what I was actually supposed to do for that instead of doing probation.
Wow. What was that sentence?
I think at that time it was a year or something like that.
So you were saying to her, I'm okay staying here.
I'm okay staying because in my mind, this is what was happening, Glenn. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have a car. Literally, I was living out of a duffel bag.
Yeah.
I had nothing.
Sure.
I was just like, what? I don't know how I would pay that $1,000. I would have to call my mom again to come bail me out, which I had already exasperated that. That's gone.
Yeah.
Annihilated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those options were gone. I was like, you know what? I'm probably the best I've ever been spiritually, just I've been reading my Bible. I've got this relationship and I'm just I'm okay with it.
Wow.
So I sat there and I did a little bit of time there, and then Blairsville got full. So they transferred me to the next county over to Towns County. So then I sat in Towns County for a couple months hanging out. Towns County was kind of funny though. They were smoking roll-up cigarettes and they were smuggling in beer. It was the craziest thing. I'd never seen anything like that in any kind of fields. Because at this point, this is my 4th facility I've ever seen, So at that point, I finally, and then they transfer me back to Blairsville. I get out. My mom takes me out and I go to Augusta. Go back to Augusta. I'd set it up with my mentor that I had mentioned earlier, that I'd called and was laughing about the fact that the Gospels, I was just realizing what they were and that they were 4 different people. And he gives me the olive branch. He's like, you can come live in my garage apartment, rent free, as long as you want.
Nice. Granted,
You don't drink, you don't use.
Yes.
Those were my only rules. I was like, okay, let's do it. So
and you did?
So I go back, and within 3 weeks, I'm back in jail.
What happened?
So this is what happened. When I got out, I thought that just religion, I was going to stay sober and I was going to stay clean. I was going to stay out of trouble.
Okay.
That was not the case. On I'll never forget this. The friend that was standing over me in the shower from the 21st birthday.
Sure.
She was lived by the church that we went to growing up, and my mentor, my godfather, had a meeting there, and I was like, "Oh, my friend lives over there. I'll go see her while you're at your meeting." Go to her house, tell her about all this stuff that happened. You know, I've been sitting in jail for nearly 6 months and all this stuff. And she says, "You want something to drink?" I was like, "Yeah, what do you got?" She's like, "I think I got like 2 beers in there. You want one?" Didn't even cross my mind. Yeah, sure.
Oh, wow. Now, why did not that, this is big. Why did that not cross your mind?
It just didn't. I can't tell you. I don't know. And that 100 different alcoholics will tell you the exact same thing.
Wow.
So I say, sure. I drank down like you'd never seen anybody drink anything. It was like a Gatorade commercial.
Yeah, sure.
From the 90s.
Sure.
Michael Jordan slamming Gatorade. That's what it was like. I didn't even realize it. And then I finished this beer and I look at her, she's like, "I got one more. Go grab it." So I went and did. And then I was supposed to go back to this mentor's house. And she was like, "Well, there's some of us going downtown. You want to go have a couple beers with us? And I'll take you home." And I just couldn't stop drinking.
So this is big.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big moment because apparently, A, you couldn't control it. B, maybe you weren't aware enough. You didn't have the conscience to see from the outside perspective what was happening to you. It was that easy to fall back into old behaviors.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So I make it back and I realize I messed up. I copped to him, let him know what happened. He's like, "All right, cool." Gives me some grace. Well, then another incident occurred where I went to go grab some stuff and hang out at a friend's apartment, fell again, and then a week later, I'm going to this buddy's apartment. I had left some work clothes, or some nice clothes, some, button-up shirt, slacks kind of clothes. And I need to go over there. So I rode my bike over there to get it. And I had arranged that one of my friends was going to take me from there to go take me to an interview at Taco Bell.
Oh, nice. An interview.
An interview
at the Bell.
Absolutely.
Wow, it's big time.
So I get over there and this friend of mine's asleep on the couch. He wakes up. He's like, "Hey man, what's up? How you doing?" Hadn't seen him in a while. And he said, "Hey man, you want to smoke a joint?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" Again, like zero, like
no filter.
Nothing. Sure, why not? And we did that. And then, the next thing is something that happened that I didn't normally do, but he's like, "Hey man, I've got some Klonopins. You want one?" I was like,
"Some what?"
Klonopins, like Xanax.
Okay.
I said, "Sure, why not?" It's not something I normally did, but I ate one. And I'm just goofy. My friend walks in. She's supposed to take me to this interview. She's like, "Greg, you're messed up. I can't in conscious mind like take you to a job interview.
Right.
Like you're not,
even if it's Taco Bell.
Like you're not there, bud."
Yeah.
And so I looked at my other buddy that I'd been hanging out with, and he's like, "Dude, let's go get a bottle of rum and go play disc golf." So we did, and that's what we did, and that began the process, right? So we went all over creation, and then I had developed this quote unquote scam where I would go into a Walmart and we would shoplift flat screen TVs.
Damn.
And we would trade them for Coke, is what we were doing with them.
Not Coca-Cola.
No, the stuff that goes the opposite direction.
Correct.
So we ended up going to Walmart. We steal a bunch of stuff. We get a flask. We get out of there.
How the hell do you get a flat screen out the front door?
It's a whole thing.
Okay, all right.
It's a whole thing. We won't get into
another
it.
podcast.
Another podcast, another time. And we get a mile down the road. I'm in a black. At this point, I don't remember anything. Like I'm just going off of like what the report says, kind of stuff. And I'll never forget, Glenn. It was August 6th, 2007. I'm in Columbia County Detention Center, and the pit in my stomach, I was just nauseous. Guilt, shame, overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I just cried out to God in that moment. And I was like, there's got to be another way. Yeah. I'm thinking about my life. I'm 22 years old at this point, and all my friends are graduating college and buying houses and starting careers and getting married and having babies.
What the hell am I doing?
And I'm over here and I just can't stay out of jail. Yeah. So at that point, and I had been exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous, some from that other treatment center, but I had never done the program, so to speak, how it's laid out in the book about Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd never got a sponsor and worked through the steps, what they say. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. When I get out of here, I'm doing it. I'm going to go to this program. I'm going to go to these meetings. I'm going to get this sponsor, and I'm going to do this thing the way they're talking. Because it's clear I don't know what's going on.
There you go.
The craziest thing happens. God is so amazing. So I get into general population in Columbia County Detention Center. I find a big print, big book, which is huge. It's enormous because it's all in large print. And there's about 6 other guys that are in active addiction that wanted to be sober. And we started a lunch meeting. So every day after lunch, we were reading the big book together. It was the craziest thing. And a couple days go by and I get called out. It's 8:00 at night. I'm actually mopping the floors. And my heart sinks. I get called over the intercom. It's 8:00 at night. It's not visiting hours. So I'm like, oh no. I'm thinking district attorney, detective.
Yeah.
What could possibly be coming back to bite me, right?
Sure.
And I'm just like shaking like a leaf on a tree, like Leonard Skinner says. Like, I am just like, holy smokes, what is happening? And they open the door and it's this family friend of mine. And he's sitting there. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm just like so relieved. He says, hey man, your mom didn't send me here. I'm here because I love you and I care about you.
It's a good friend.
And I know about this place that I think could help you out a lot. And he had went on this Christian retreat called A Walk to Emmaus. And he had met this counselor that worked at Penfield, men's Christian place outside of Madison, Georgia. And he's like, I think it would be a good place for you. I even thought it was such a good place. I called your mom and ran some stuff by her. And she said, if you want to go and you call and set it up, she'll bond you out from here and take you there door to door.
Wow.
But you got to make the call. And they accept calls from jail. I was like,
you have to accept responsibility
100%
and take action.
You got it. So that's what I did. The next day, I wrote down everything I needed to write down. I called Penfield. Carrie picks up the phone and I start talking to her. She's like, all right, Mr. Goad, sounds great. We definitely have a spot for you. You don't need to go to detox. You've sat in jail long enough. You're good there. We won't have a bed for 32 days. So I sat for 32 days waiting on a bed. And the 32 days
Sat
in Columbia County Detention Center.
Okay.
Yeah, I sat in jail doing the same thing that I was doing.
Sure.
We were holding this book study and I was reading my Bible and I was okay. I was safe. That's the best way I can describe it. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but I was sitting in jail, but
safe
to me, I was safe
Sure.
from the drugs
Sure.
and the alcohol.
Understandable.
Right. So I get out. And that's what we did. It was that guy that came and visited me's wife. She was like my second mom, and my mom picked me up. And I'll never forget, they drove me to Pizza Hut outside of Madison, Georgia, in Eatonton. We get lunch, and they take me to rehab. And I checked into Penfield. It was a 6.5-week program. And I did absolutely everything they asked me to. And I'll never forget, I was about 2 weeks in, and my counselor, the way their classes work, it's in the cafeteria. It's kind of like a classroom / cafeteria. Okay. So he comes into the cafeteria that morning. He's supposed to be teaching our morning session. He says, we're going to do something different today. I want to play y'all a song. It's new on the radio. And it's on the Christian radio stations. And it's called East to West. It's this Casting Crowns song. And they're Atlanta-based Christian rock band, which I didn't know at the time.
Didn't know that.
And he plays the song. And then this line in this song, Glenn, it says, I loved you so far as the East is from the West, and I've forgiven you. Wow. And at that point, I didn't just know that God had forgiven me, but it gave me my permission for me to forgive me.
And that's a big deal. That's a huge deal.
And I wept.
Wow.
I melted. Yeah. I just wept. And the Holy Spirit just came on me where it's like, I just knew it just fell off of me. All the shame, all the guilt, everything. I had forgiven myself for all the stuff that I'd done.
God spoke to you through that song.
100%. And every time I listened to it, and it's funny how that counselor is now back in my life today.
That's fantastic.
16 plus years later, he's not in that business, or wasn't when we came across each other again. So that was the beginning. So once we got in there and I started doing that, and then I graduated from there, and they were like, hey, you should probably go to a men's recovery residence. So I did that. When I get into that recovery residence, I was like, hey, we go to this many meetings. This is what we do. You need to get a job. You need to do this. You need to get a sponsor. You need to work the steps. And I was like, doing this, doing that, doing this. Okay, cool.
Check.
Yep. So we go to our first meeting. I got to know one of the guys there pretty well right off the rip. And he says, hey, I think this would be a good sponsor for you. Guy got 1.5 years sober. He had a driver's license. He lived on his own. I was like, dude, I have hit jackpot. Like, who are you? You're an anomaly. Yeah. And he took me through my first set of steps. And we went through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we went through those steps. And I had a spiritual experience through going through those steps, and I grew a relationship with God in a way that I never knew I could.
Can you share with us what that experience was?
So it's over that whole entire process of reading the book together. You sit down, and once a week we would get together, we would read the book together. And when it came to certain parts, we would do certain things. We would say a prayer, or we got to what we call the 4th step. We would take an inventory of our life. And then the 5th step is going through that inventory and then seeing where our wrongs were, right? Then 6 and 7 is primarily like asking God to remove those defects of character, right? And then 8 and 9 is like making a list of the people that I had harmed. And then 9 is going to those people and making amends to those people, right? And then 11
is that difficult?
Yes, it is. Yeah, because you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
You may be embraced with love and forgiveness, and
you might not.
You may not.
Yeah.
I was very
And
fortunate.
when you're not, how do you deal with that?
Well, that's not your business. Your business is make the amends.
Okay.
That's on their side of the street. How they react's not up to you.
That's good.
And if it's not received, that's not on you.
Right.
You've cleared your side of the street.
Okay.
And you continue to pray for that person, through that process. And then the 12th step primarily is to give back, continue to be of service in all that we do. Yeah. And that's through sponsoring people, giving back to AA, service positions, giving to church, like all the different things you can think of, like giving back, and not just giving like monetarily, but like giving your time and your energy,
absolutely.
And the face time, so much more valuable than any dollar spent, in my opinion. Right. So, I go through that whole process, and I lived at this halfway house for almost a year. It was off Northridge Road, off Roswell Road.
Sure.
Went to 8111 Clubhouse. Those folks who know about the AA clubhouses around the greater Atlanta area, I always liked that clubhouse. It was really close to the Lamborghini dealership.
Nice.
Always obsessed with, cars as a guy and a kid. I'm like, oh, there's a Lambo dealership here? Holy smokes,
Awesome. Awesome. So that was your first rehab?
That was the second one.
That was the second one.
Because I had went to the IOP.
That's right.
I got sober for a little while. I fell. Then went to jail, got sober at Penfield, went to the men's recovery house. I left there. I ended up living with a buddy of mine that was sober, lived in East Atlanta. I moved in with him. And then I met my wife. And I had met her in another life when I was still using. But like we had some tussle. We dated for a little while, and she was like, you're a buffoon. Yes. Bye.
Good for her.
See you later.
Good for her.
And I was like, cool, whatever. Well, when it came back to this amends process, I owed this girl an amends. And this was when Facebook was new. This is like 2008, 2007, right? So I'll never forget. I went home from the halfway house, and I was at my parents' house in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I created a Facebook account. And I was like, this is so taboo. This is so weird. Like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm going to create this account. So we weren't allowed to have computers or laptops or anything like that in our recovery house. So we would go to the office. So when I would go to the office place, I would check my email, and then I started checking the Facebook because that was went hand in hand, And I see this picture of this girl. I'm like, oh no, my heart sinks because I remember my 4th and 5th step. And I went to my sponsor. I was like, hey, I need to answer. I've got something that I've seen that I think I need to take care of. Can we meet?
Yeah.
So we ended up meeting up, and I said, hey, I saw this girl or this amends, but it's online. What do we do? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, I need to run this up the chain. So he's like, let me go to some of the folks that have been sober a while, and let's kind of see what's best fits this, what we should do for this amends, because this is all social media is so new at this point.
Sure.
And He's like, next week we get together. He's like, all right, I think I got a game plan. I was like, I'm all ears. What are we doing? He said, I think friend request her. And if she accepts it, you do some digging and see if she's with anybody romantically. If she is, you just leave it alone. Just living amends. Just do living amends, right? But if she's not, you need to sit down and do a face-to-face amends. So, all right, cool. Go home. Friend request her. 6 months later, she says yes to the friend request.
6 months.
6 months. And
not 6 days, not 6 minutes.
6 months.
Jeez.
Right. Yeah. Hilarious. You know, and
She doesn't rush into things.
well, she's like, what the hell?
Right. Yeah.
Who is this
Why
guy?
is he
And why?
coming?
I never thought in a million years I would see this guy ever again.
Right.
And then we end up going to she's not with anybody, so we end up coming out of there and going to Starbucks. And so we get together. She was living in Athens still. She was in her senior year at Georgia, and we did the amends. You know, and what that means is not that I would apologize, but say, hey, I did some things wrong. How do I make this right?
Yeah.
You tell me what to do.
Right.
And I'll do it. And on the spot, she's, you know, crying. She's like, no one's ever said anything like that to me. I love what you're doing. You're forgiven. I'm just kind of like blown away.
Wow.
I was like, and at this point, zero romantic intentions too.
Sure.
Totally like,
Sure.
hey, I'm just doing this. I know I need to, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
But it was pure. What you did was pure.
It was pure. And afterwards, we're getting done. At this point, you know, I don't have a license. Clearly, everything. No license, right? Been sober a year and some
Not
change.
a Lamborghini yet.
No, not even close. I have a MARTA pass and a
Yeah.
bike.
Got it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right. And we're getting up to leave, and I know I'm going to have to walk down to the train station in Buckhead, catch a train to a bus to go home. I was living in East Atlanta, right off Glenwood. And she was like, hey, I have this friend that works across the street at the Fork and Screen. Do you want to go to a movie? And I was like, no, probably not a good idea. I was like, I got to, you know, I don't have a license. I got to do this and this and get home. And she's like, no, I'll give you a ride. I was like, oh God, now what? And the Holy Spirit talked to me in that moment. He said, hey, that gentleman, that guy that you told her who you are,
Sure.
you need to prove to her that that's who you are. So you need to go and you need to be on your best behavior. Keep your hands to yourself.
Be a gentleman.
Be a gentleman and go. And I was like, okay, cool. So we go see a movie. The movie is He's Just Not That Into You. Oh, right.
You can't make that up.
You can't make that up.
That's
man.
great.
So we go to the movie. We get back home. She drops me off. We hug. And we didn't like start like sparks didn't fly. And there wasn't a romantic connection, but it was very pure and genuine. Right. We both had a good time.
Yeah.
And we started talking slowly over the couple weeks, couple months. And then the stuff started happening that happens, right?
Yeah.
And stuff starts to stir. And I called my sponsor. I was like, hey, remember that girl I made that amends with? He's like, yeah. He's like, I want to ask her out. He's like, dude, you're crazy. But if you do, here's my one piece of advice. Date her like you would date my daughter.
Yeah. Ooh, good advice.
Right?
Good advice.
I'd never heard anything like that. I was like, who is this wizard? Like,
Yeah,
holy smokes. And so that's what I did. And, you know, I'll never forget the first date that we went on. She said yes. She said, yeah. She's still living in Athens. I was living in East Atlanta. So it wasn't like we could just like hang out all the time.
Sure.
You know, I don't have a license. I got a bike and a MARTA pass, you know?
No one wheel yet.
No, dude, I could not afford a one wheel at that time. Bro, I could barely afford a bike.
That's great.
I remember I had to get
an old school Evel Knievel Huffy.
Dude, I was actually blessed at that point too. I had a buddy of mine who wanted to get into mountain biking and bought this Specialized rock hopper hardtail.
Yeah.
And I think I bought it from him. He gave it to me and I was making payments on it.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
But our first date was we went to Stone Mountain.
Oh,
we did a day hike and we had a picnic at top Stone Mountain.
Awesome.
You know, and over the next kind of year and some half. And then the other thing, during that time, I'm going to meetings, being of service. I'm sponsoring guys. I'm going back to the halfway house and taking
She's in know about all this.
Oh, she knows. I've been 100% clear and open and honest with everything, you know, because I had already dated somebody prior to her in recovery. And I just laid everything out. Like, hey, like, you got to love Jesus, you got to be in the outdoors, and you got to love music. You know, those are kind of like my prerequisites,
right? Sure.
you know, and she hit all those and then some, you know. And you know, some of the story where we actually went out and we worked out west. You know, we went and worked in that Yellowstone National Park 3 different summers. I was waiting tables at Old Faithful Inn.
That's awesome.
The big beautiful dining room in the 1901 big beautiful cabin built by Robert Raymer. You know,
wow.
And then one summer we came back from that. We worked on Cumberland Island. We worked at Grayfield Inn for a year.
Wow.
Lived there. Remember the show The Real World?
Sure.
That's what it was like working at Grayfield.
Okay.
You live on an island. There's no stores. There's no streets. You can't have a vehicle.
Right.
You know, we had our vehicle to get to and from work. That was a work permitted vehicle, but there's no like, you don't get off the island. Like when you get off shift, like you just go back to the house.
Wow.
You know, we lived at this old farmhouse, which was actually an old slave quarters.
Pre-technology.
North of the airfield on Cumberland. And then we left there, we got the bug, we went back out west, worked another summer. And after that summer is when we ended up living in Montana. And again, during this time, I'm still sober. I'm still growing and changed and doing all that stuff. So we get to Big Sky and she gets a job at this super bougie hotel. So she's working at the Yellowstone Club and I was working at the resort and I was working in conference services and I was managing this like restaurant bar and I was doing food and beverage again. So it was this whole evolution of us. Like,
sounds very cool. Cool lifestyle.
It was very cool. And then we get married in 2015.
Nice. Wow. What a story.
So we get married in 2015. And let me tell you this, the Alcoholics Anonymous community in Big Sky, Montana is rad.
Wow.
The joke is we have some of the best chairlift AA meetings in the world. Wow. You know, because you go ski with these guys that you're sober with and you spend all day with them.
Yeah, super cool.
And you share your life. You share that moment. You know, you think about how many, if you did 19 runs, you rode 19 chairs, you know, if you're with the same guy, you got to hang out with that person a lot that day. So I got very close with that community.
It's
like
brotherhood.
It was 100% brotherhood. Yeah. You know, we got to meet so many cool, diverse people, you know. We get married in 2015. It is a storybook wedding. Like we got married in the beautiful like cathedral in the valley that overlooked the big Lone Peak Mountain. I mean, just like we got our reception was at the Rainbow Ranch, was the ranch.
I want to see pictures.
Oh, dude, we got a whole book. Yeah,
I got to see it.
We'll have you and Lisa over, and y'all totally like dig through our wedding.
Awesome. That'd be awesome.
But we come back from our honeymoon, and I'll never forget this. We flew into Bozeman, and we had a cool honeymoon. We did it 2 weeks, so it was late October. We went and saw Widespread Panic in Asheville for Halloween shows.
Oh, nice.
Got dressed up for the show, Bride and Groom and Zombies.
Okay.
Had a blast. Stayed at the Grove Park Inn. Ended up in the President's Suite, which was crazy. Super cool. And then the second half, so we went to Jamaica and went to Negril. And we went to this like all-inclusive place, which was really not my speed. My speed is go, go, go all the time.
Yeah.
That's just how I'm wired.
Sure.
And but the fact that she could nail me down on a beach for 5 days was pretty big. So we come back from that. We fly to Bozeman. We're about halfway home. And I look over, Glenn, she's just ugly crying. I'm like, oh no.
Ooh, what's up?
What's going on? What is the matter? And sure enough, she says, I'm homesick. I can't see us raising a family here, anything. Because we both want kids.
Sure.
Like we're very open, like, hey, we don't know how many kids, but we both want kids, like plural.
Sure.
And I had to swallow my pride. And that fall, I was going to this Alcoholics Anonymous retreat that was in Madison, Georgia at Rock Eagle at the 4-H camp. It's called the Atlanta Men's Workshop. And I've been going to that for years. And it's a biannual retreat, October, April, every year. So I go that October and I see some friends I hadn't seen in a while. And one of them specifically, his name was John Gale. I run into John. We're walking out of the Friday night speaker meeting and it's 400 guys there. We walk out of the auditorium at this 4-H camp. And I see him and it's just like, dude, we had like a book study together. Like we were like bros, but I hadn't seen him in 2 years. So I was living in Montana.
Sure.
And we just like instantly like pulled off of the main drag and like found a picnic bench and sat down and just like, so what's up, bro? How you been? You know? And you get all the like the casual stuff, the surface level stuff.
The surface stuff.
We get the surface stuff out of him. He says, so what's up?
Yeah.
So how are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, bro, this is where I'm at. Yeah. I was like, Lauren wants to move home. And this is when like my entire like mindset and heart changed about everything that she was wanting. He says, so move home. dude, you've had a great run. You've had a ton of fun out
That's a
there.
great attitude about it.
He's like, we need you. He's like, we need you in this recovery community, and we need you in our church community.
Wow.
And dude,
Calling.
Knock,
knock,
I'm
knock.
overwhelmed with emotion, and instantly I'm just like, Holy Spirit, yes. Like he was like, well, that was easy.
Wow. Wow.
And I was like, you just offered me something I'd never been offered before. You know, he offered this olive branch of community.
Sure.
Right?
We all want that.
He just invites me into it. And I was like, sold, let's go. And he's like, all right, well, that was easy. So if you move back, let me ask you, what are you going to do? And this is how the real estate stuff happens. And I was like, I don't know. I could do one of 100 different things. At this point, I can run, I can work front of the house, back of the house, managerial, like restaurant stuff. I can run valet. I can do property management. I ran a tow truck for a little while. I can do hardscapes. I can run a mini X. I can run a skid steer. I can do all these different things. And he's like, dude, you should get your real estate license. I was like, get my real estate license. And I had heard this before.
But you had never considered it
But
before.
I was like, that sounds so intricate. It sounds hard.
Yeah.
How everybody's always presented it to me.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, I've been in the business 16 years. I'm on brokerage. I'd love to bring you on, get your license, and I'll pay you a small salary the first year and teach you everything I know.
Wow.
And I was like, sounds great.
How do you say no to that?
Yeah. And so I went back and I kind of gave Lauren like the caveat, like, okay, I'm willing to do this, but you got to get a job first. So I buyed myself another year in Montana before she got a job.
Nice.
So I
Good for
skied
you.
my face off and fly fished as much as I possibly could for the next year. But we moved back and I get licensed and I go through that process. Just like I was telling you earlier, I went to all those places to get all the pieces of paper to turn into the Georgia Real Estate Commission to get all the stuff approved. I failed.
Well, you jumped through some hoops.
I failed the test the first time. I had to go back and the week later and take it again.
Yeah.
So I really had to work for it.
Sure.
And that's when I started selling real estate. He was working. He had a hedge fund client, and because I didn't have a community really. I wasn't from Atlanta. My wife was from Kennesaw, born and raised, but like I'd lived in the city. Like I knew some folks in East Atlanta. I knew some people in like the Roswell, Alpharetta area, but like I really didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
And what happened then was I started working with this hedge fund and buying and selling. I got to figure out like what their buyer box looked like, the certain things that needed to happen, line it up with the spreadsheet and make sure the numbers work. And then I was writing deals and starting to work the deals and, working with other agents, working with contractors, attorneys, all these different things to get a deal done. Right. So I get super proficient in like doing the transaction.
Sure.
Right. To the point where I could do it in my sleep. I was writing up to 5 contracts a day. I wasn't winning that many, but I was writing that many contracts a day.
Bunch of work.
So I could sit down and write a contract in like 15, 20 minutes, and then fast forward it as I started to live in the community, right? My sphere of influence started to grow,
Sure.
right? With people in the program, people in our church community. And I started to pick up business. I started to help families.
Sure.
I love that so much more. Right.
Yeah.
Whenever you get to help somebody in the program that you've seen come from nothing, give them the keys to a house.
What a blessing.
Oh my gosh.
That's incredible.
Tears of joy.
Yeah.
Right. You're watching.
That's emotional currency.
Oh, it's so amazing. Right. And then to help them sell it and then to watch them have kids. And in the process, I'm doing all this stuff.
Yeah, it's life.
When we move back, we don't move it back into our house. We move into her parents' house.
Oh gosh.
So literally our first anniversary, get pregnant, unplanned. But we were both somewhat ready. Like, hey, that's why we moved back. And we were like, we're doing this, literally we had $11,000 saved to buy a house. And we bought a little townhome in Ackworth, Woodstock area, right inside Cherokee County. Sure. And we had that first baby girl. Her name's Lily, and she changed the world, in my eyes.
So
for me,
adorable.
Dude, she's my mini me in a girl's body.
Yeah,
It's what awesome. She is.
Yeah.
But the cool thing was through that process, what Alcoholics has done for me and what this recovery community has done for me is they've fathered me. They've mentored me through like moving across the country, getting married, like doing life. I figured out that I didn't have to do life alone.
That's awesome.
Right. So tapping into the community and being open-handed.
Yeah.
Right. And whenever we get lost at sea, you just throw the red flag up and they'll come find you. you know? So I'm learning all these different things, and I'm going to men's meetings specifically because like, hey, like these guys were, you know, entrepreneurs, they were dads, they were showing me how to develop all these different relationships in my life. And then, you know this story, but then my second son comes along we had sold the townhome, we had bought this other home in Crestmont, your neighborhood.
Sure.
And we hadn't been in the house that long. And what I told Lauren was, I was like, we need this one out of diapers before we have another one.
Sure.
Well, sure enough, we get Lily right out of diapers and
Bingo.
we're pregnant again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, go through the process, everything. The pregnancy was pretty good. Lauren's pregnancy wasn't like most women's, she was really sick a lot, it really affected her emotionally and physically. And, then Sage was born 32 weeks premature, which, and she abrupted in the middle of the night. She wakes me up. She says, "Hey, Greg, I'm bleeding." I said, "Okay, like how bad?" And she's like, "Well, I called the doctor and, we don't know what we're going to do yet." I was like, "Okay, I'm waiting on a call back." I rolled over and go back to sleep. 15 minutes later, she shake me. "Hey, I'm bleeding a lot. We're going now." So we, grabbed the toddler, grabbed the 100-pound lab, dropped them off at Grammy's house, flying 90 miles an hour down 75 to Kennestone, right around the corner from here, the studio, and pull in. It's COVID. So I got, masks and everything and all the crazy stuff. And we walk in, it's like 2:00 in the morning and we're all like frantic and they're all just kind of like, "Oh yeah, just come, we got your room back here." And da, 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 da. Well, then they start to check her out and realize how much she's bleeding.
Yeah.
And it was like the whole room filled up like that with doctors and nurses, just woof.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And
that will do it.
I stood up because there's so many people in this small little room to give them space. I started getting lightheaded. I was like, "Oh, this isn't good." I was like, "I should probably sit down." I literally, Glenn, I sit down and I fell out into the wall. I don't know if I had a seizure, if I passed out, what. But all I know is the last thing I remember is them wheeling her out to have a C-section, like emergency C-section.
Wow.
And it was crazy. And they were trying to admit me to the emergency room and they were trying to, and I was like, "Hey, listen," I was like, with everything that's happening, like, please do not separate me. I was like, "I'm good if I'm awake." And they're like, "Well, we're going to put you on a heart rate monitor. We're going to put you on a bed in here." I was just like, "Cool. Sounds great. That's what we're doing." And after the OR, they come and get me. I throw up twice on the way to the OR in a wheelchair, just nauseous. And then we get this news, Glenn, and man, it was like a punch in the gut, dude. It was a female doctor. And it's me and my wife. They wheeled me up next to her. She's sitting in the bed. And at the end of the bed, it's the doctors and the nurses and all the staff that were there that was a part of the procedure. And they said, "We want you to enjoy whatever time that you have with him because you might not have much time with him."
Oh, my God.
And he suffered some severe brain trauma. And if he does survive, he may have permanent brain damage.
Oh, my.
Dude. Hearts ripped out of our
Oh, my God,
chest.
of course.
We're leveled. We cry ourselves to sleep that night. And you know what? The next day, one of my buddies texted me. He's like, "What hospital you at?" I was like, "Yeah, we're at Kennestone." He's like, "Hey, I'm outside. Come outside. I got a cup of coffee for you." I was like, "All right." I go outside. And it's my men's small group from church.
Oh, man.
And it's like mixed
The
with,
whole group?
yeah, well, the core group,
Okay, yeah.
and it's mixed between like guys I sponsored, guys I'm sober with, and these guys from church.
Yeah.
And it was like the whole like group just like
God
and
bless
just
them.
like,
Came there to love you.
oh man, it was powerful, and did that. And then the next day I finally get showered and he's in an incubator. He's in the NICU. Like, we don't know like how he's like, at this point he's stable. And the next day, I'll never forget, Lauren's like, "Hey, Dad brought us some clothes. I want you to take a shower, go get some food outside of here. And then I want you to go sit and pray in the NICU all day."
Yeah.
I was like, "Yes, ma'am. Absolutely." So I did. Showered, got dressed. I went over to Good Kitchen, which I know you're familiar
Sure.
with. I love
Turn me
Good
onto it.
Kitchen. Oh, that place is amazing. So I go in there and I walk over there. I'm listening to worship music. It's this old house that they've converted into this old shotgun style house,
Fantastic.
converted into a restaurant. So after that's all taking place, I go and I get the coffee. They say, just go outside and we'll bring it to you. So I do that. And this guy comes over. He says, hey man, did you order a coffee up there? I was like, I did. He was like, I can bring it to you. I was like, are you hungry? I was like, yeah. I was like, you're actually sitting in my section. I can bring you a menu. I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. He's like, no, you're cool. Like, you hungry? I'm like, yes, please feed me. And he's like, all right, cool. So he sees the wristband from the hospital and he says, hey man, what's up with the wristband? You just have a baby, you just get to the hospital. What's up? And I'm just so open and honest. I just threw up on him.
Sure.
I just told him everything.
Sure.
He says, dude, can I pray for you? I was like, sure. And I was like, he's like, can I lay hands on you?
Wow. Total stranger.
Dude, this kid's like 20 something. He lays his hands on me and he prays this prayer of healing, comfort, serenity, peace.
Wow.
Over the child, my wife.
I want to meet him.
And I'm just weeping.
Yeah.
And I'm just weeping. And, you know, so it's just like, I'm going through that and just like, holy smokes. And with that, I'm living there and I leave there and I put my headphones back on and I'm listening to worship music and I'm listening to this song called Bigger Than I Thought You Were. And I come around the corner of Tower Drive and it's Kennesaw Mountain, Kennestone on the left and McAllister's Deli on the right. And there's laser beams of sun coming out of the mountain. And God just spoke to me. It was like, your kid's going to be good. Oh man. You know, your kid's going to be good.
God is good, brother.
You know, and that was something else that we went through, you know, and he was like through that process, like all the anxiety, all the stress of everything just fell off, just left, gone.
Have you made friends with this guy? Do you know who he is? Or was he an angel who came to speak to you in that moment and you never saw him again?
So he works for me now.
Oh, okay. So I can meet him.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal.
Actually, you probably met him at the Memorial Day thing this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You probably met him. Most likely.
Awesome. Wow.
But yeah, and you know, since then with everything that was going on in my life, you know, our business has just really taken off, you know.
You're blessed, man.
And with what we've done with video marketing, our YouTube channel, you know, our family, you know, our community, it's really been amazing, you know. And what I know today is that the community is everything, you know. It's where the people are.
Amen to that, brother.
You know, that's where it's at. You know, it's like, I know I've seen you and Lisa at church too, and it's like, I know what this is, you know, and this community is so much bigger. But what happens, you're talking about the advantage of the adversity, right? And let's bring it back to like the purpose, like what's this podcast about, right?
Yes.
And it's utilizing and being open and honest with my recovery. Yes, I'm a drug addict. Yes, I'm an alcoholic. But I've also been sober for 16 years.
That's incredible.
You know, one day at a time, you know, and with a relationship with God, you know, and being involved in my own recovery, right?
Yes.
That's the process, but it's not being shy about it.
Yeah.
It's inviting people into it.
Yeah.
It's sharing it, you know. Today I can get phone calls from people in church saying, hey, I got a problem, or hey, little Johnny has a problem, you know. And then I've got people in the rooms that are going, hey, like, you have it all together. Like, who is this God you have? And it gives me an opportunity to share my relationship with Jesus with them.
Sure.
You know, and then now they've blended together. So it's really cool to see how like those worlds have collided, you know, because it's such a, they don't collide really. So.
Wow. Phenomenal. Wow. I'm high on life on this story. Just phenomenal.
It's a hoot.
Just phenomenal. This has been amazing. This has been absolutely amazing.
Hope we haven't chewed up too much time.
No, we're good. We're good. Hey, Joe Rogan goes 3 hours. I think we're only in an hour. So
okay, perfect.
We're perfect. Yeah. But thank you so much, Greg, for being a friend, for being who you are, for sharing with such candor and transparency and vulnerability, because I believe that when we're honest and we're vulnerable, peel back all the layers of the onion, that's when we best serve other people. And that's what you're doing with your life.
Thank you.
There's no question. So thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. All right, my friends. Wow, big wow. What another incredible conversation. If you didn't get the goosebumps like Tim over here with that last story, maybe you need to check your pulse. But hey, hope this resonated. Please share this. If it speaks to you, like it, consider subscribing, share with your friends and family. You know, we all have somebody in our circle, in our community, who's been touched by drugs and alcohol, and, you know, in my case, cancer. So that's what this show is all about, to give hope and to teach people different strategies and different perspectives on moving through adversity and finding the advantage.
That's it.
That's what it's all about. So hope you enjoyed it. Coming to you from North Atlanta Studios, produced by Mesmerize Media. I'm Glenn Carver. We're out.